Good morning to all of you. So welcome to my channel. Today we will be discussing about class and objects in Java. Actually we are discussing it about class and objects in Java. Basically this is same for other languages also, more or less same. I won't say totally same, more or less same, but there may be very minor differences. So let us deep dive into this topic and understand what a class is and what the objects of those classes are and what are their significances or importance. So before starting the vlog or before starting this tutorial, please do like, share, subscribe my channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon, and also please do comment about how do you like this tutorial, and if you have any kind of doubts, do mention in the comment section so that I will be able to clear your doubts. So in Java, classes and objects are basic concepts of OOPS, that is object-oriented programming system, that are used to represent real-world concepts and entities. The class represents a group of objects having similar properties and behavior. For example, the animal type dog is a class, while a particular dog named Tommy is an object of the dog class. So let me give you a very simple example on this. Say, for instance, you are the child of your parent. Okay, so your parent is having some characteristics or behavior as a human being, right? So suppose you go outside your house and you do anything good. So what the people will say, that they will signify the name of your parent and tell that that parent's child has done a good deed, right? So which means you are representing your parent to the outside world or to the outside entity. So now consider the same scenario as your parent as a class, an object as that is you yourself, that is the child as an object, which means that your parents are the class and the child are the objects. So in computer science terminology, object always represents a class. Let us understand about the classes and objects separately. Now, a class in Java is a set of objects which shares common characteristics of behavior and common properties or attributes. It is a user-defined blueprint or prototype from which objects are created. For example, student is a class while a particular student named Ravi is an object. Okay. Now, it is being defined that an object shares the common characteristics of behavior of a class. Now, just now I have given you an example of the parent and child. Now your parent has some defined characteristics of behavior as a human being, and you as a child also has some of the behaviors or characteristics which is common to your parent, which means you have some of the behavior or characteristics of your parent also, as you are the child of your parent, right? As they have given you the birth. So which means by default you are sharing the common behaviors or the common characteristics of your parents. So similarly, an object also shares the common characteristics of behavior of the classes. What are the properties of Java classes? Class is not a real world entity. It is just a template or blueprint or prototype from which objects are created. Class is not like any object which exists in the real world. Okay, so when suppose you are planning to build a house, so what do you need before building a house? A plan, a blueprint of your house, right? So is blueprint a real world entity? Can we say that blueprint is your house? No, because your house will be built based on that blueprint. Right, so blueprint is nothing, but it is just a logical entity. It's not a real world entity which do exist in real world. Okay, which do exists in the real world. Okay, now class do not occupy memory. Now whenever you define a class doesn't occupy any kind of memory. Class is a group of variables of different data types and a group of methods. Now I'm talking about the computer science terminology. Class is nothing, but class is a group of variables, that is many variables are defined within a class, and a group of methods. Methods means functions. In Java it is known as methods. So many functions are defined within a class. So class in altogether is a pack of variables and methods. A class in Java can contain what a classes can contain. They can contain data member, they can contain method, they can contain constructor, they can even contain nested class as well as interface. Now what are these we will discuss later. Here is an example of how to declare a class in Java. The access modifier that I have already made a vlog on this, that is public, private, protected or default. Then class, that is a keyword, and the class name. Class name starts with an alphanumeric number and can be a combination of any kind of numbers or digits, right? So class name is up to you. Then second bracket open. Then you will be, defining all the logics or declaring all the logics or defining the data members or methods or constructor, or even if you have a nested class or interface, and then close the second bracket. Remember one thing, the opening of the first bracket and the opening of the second bracket and the closing of the second bracket is known as the scope of the class. That is, these data members or methods, constructor, nested class, interface by default will operate within this scope and not outside the scope, and only based on the access modifier these members of the class can be accessed from outside the class. Okay, so this data member, method, constructor, nested class, interface, these all are considered as a member of the class. Now this is an example of the class. That was the syntax that I have already explained. The example, see, class, the keyword, then class name. As I said in the access modifier portion, when there is no explicit access modifier mentioned, it is considered as a default access modifier. Okay, so class student, then the second bracket open, then data member. See, the data member means the variables. Int id is the variable and int is the data type of the variable. Definitely I'll also discuss about the data types in later vlogs. Next, another data member is there. String name is the data member or the variable and the data type is string. Then you have public static void main. We will also discuss about this public static void main in my next vlog. Now here we are creating an object, that is with the new keyword. Whenever you get a new keyword, it means an object is being created, and the object is being created of which class? Of the student class. How do you understand that the object is being created of the student class? By this name. See, here the class name is student, here also the object name is S1, which is representing the class name student, and equal to new class name. The class name should be same here after the new keyword to signify that S1 object belongs to student class. Okay, so here we are printing the ID data member and the name data member through the object S1, which means the object S1 is representing the properties or is sharing the properties of the student class. The properties or the members of the student class means the ID and name. And the output is 0 and null, because by default, I have already explained in my previous blog that by default, whenever a constructor is being created, because here whenever you are using a new keyword means a constructor is being called, the default constructor is being called. The Java compiler calls a default constructor, and if you do not pass any kind of value in the variable or the data member, the default constructor value that it considers is 0 and null based on the data type. As integer data type, so it's 0, and as the name is a string data type, so it is considered as null. Now, what are the components of Java classes? Now, this is a very important thing. So the components are like modifiers. A class can be public or has default access. That is the access modifier. Okay. Next, the class keyword that I have said already in the previous slides. Next, the class name. That can be any name, and that should begin with an alphanumeric character or an initial letter. That's what I say. Now, superclass, if any. Now, this is what you need to understand. Superclass means the name of the class parent superclass, if any, preceded by the keyword extends. A class can only extend one parent. This definitely we will come later. But remember one thing, that as I have already explained in my blog of inheritance, study that very carefully, because that will make you understand what the concept of superclass or a parent class and subclass or a child class is. Okay, so whenever there is a keyword extend, So the parent class is known as superclass, which means the child class is inheriting the properties of the parent class, okay, by the keyword extends. So whenever there will be a keyword extend, you will automatically understand that there is a parent class and a child class relationship, and there is a concept of inheritance. Definitely do watch my blog Inheritance before studying this. Now interfaces, a comma separated list of interfaces implemented by the class, if any, preceded by the keyword implements. A class can implement more than one interface. Okay, so what is an interface and what are the implications of interface, we will definitely discuss later, but as of now remember that through the keyword implement, a class is implementing an interfaces. Okay, and a class can implement multiple interface, but in case of inheritance, a subclass can only extend one parent, which means a subclass can only inherit one parent. Okay, but in case of interface, a class can implement multiple interfaces. Okay, so what is an interface? That we will definitely discuss later. And the body of the class, that is, which is written, where you are defining the data member, where you are defining the methods, okay, between the second opening bracket and the last second closing bracket. So constructors are used for initializing new objects. Now let me give you a brief thing about it. Whenever an object of a class is being created, a constructor is being called. Okay, the Java compiler calls a default constructor, right? So, but you can also create a user-defined constructor and get it called while an object is being created, and a constructor name should be the same name of the class. So that you have to keep in mind. Now let us understand what Java object is. So I have already explained about the classes in Java, and now I am going to explain and make you understand about the objects in Java. I mean to say that objects for a class. An object in Java is a basic unit of object-oriented programming and represents real-life entities. Objects are the instances of a class that are created to use the attributes and methods of a class. Okay. A typical Java program creates many objects which, as you know, interact by invoking methods, which means an object is nothing but an instance of a class, which means that the properties, what are the properties of a class? The data members, that is the variables, and the methods of a class. So through an object, we can access the properties of a class. Okay. Now an object consists of three things: state, behavior, and identity. Now we have heard about behavior of humans. Now what is this behavior about objects? We will discuss about this. First, state. It is represented by an attribute of an object. It also reflects the properties of an object. State means that what is the property of an object. As a class has some properties, an object also has some property. Behavior means it is represented by the methods of an object. It also reflects the response of an object with other objects, which means when an object is invoking any of the method of a class, so how is the object responding to that after the method gets executed? So that is the behavior of an object. An identity, it gives a unique name to an object and enables one object to interact with other objects. Identity means the name of an object which differentiates an object from another object and which makes easier to understand the different objects, as different objects will have different naming conventions and different names. So here is a simple diagram which will justify about the object. That is a simple example diagram. The first is identity. So identity means, suppose you have a dog. If we consider the object as a dog, okay, suppose the dog belongs to another class, that is, say the dog is an instance of class A, for instance. So now the dog must have a name which will differentiate it from other objects, right? So the name of the object comes under the identity. Okay. Now the state. The state means or you can say the attributes, that is the dog is of what type, what is the age of the dog, what is the color of the dog, what is the breed of the dog, that is the state, its age, its color, its breed, or attributes. And the behavior of the dog, like what the dog does, it barks, it sleeps, it eats, it walks, and etc, etc. So that comes under the behaviors. Objects correspond to things found in the real world. For example, a graphics program may have objects such as, circle, square, menu. An online shopping system may have objects such as, you have seen this very often, shopping cart, customer, product. So these are the objects of online shopping class, and the circle, square, mean these are the objects of the shape class, because these basically are all shapes. Okay, now declaring objects. Now how do we declare an object? Very important. When an object of a class is created, the class is said to be instantiated, which means when only a class is created without an object, the class is not instantiated. When an object of that class is being created, the class is instantiated. Okay, keep this in mind. All the instances share the attributes and the behavior of the class. Once the object is created, it has access to all the behaviors or the attributes, or you can say the fields and methods of the class. But the values of those attributes, that is the state, are unique for each object. So say the values, which means the value that the method will return, the value which the variable of the class will hold, those are unique for each object. Okay, so say we have two classes, class A, class B. We have two objects, object 1 of class A, object 2 of class B. So object 1 of class A is accessing a variable, object 2 of class B is accessing a variable. So class A, say the variable of class A is having a value of 10, the variable of class B is having a value of 20. So we have two different objects with two different values. So this is basically the state of the object. A single class may have any number of instances, which means a single class can have multiple objects. For instance, here there is a class dog. Now there are four objects, dog 1, dog 2, dog 3, dog 4 of class dog. Class dog has a state or attribute, breed, age, color, and behaviors like bark, eat, and sleep. So all the four objects are able to access all the state or attributes and all the behaviors of class dog. Initializing a Java object. Now what do you mean by initializing a Java object? The new operator instantiates a class by allocating memory for a new object and returning a reference to that memory. The new operator also invokes the class constructor, which means whenever you are using the new operator while creating an object for the class, a default constructor is being called, which means a default constructor of class constructor is being called. Okay. Now, whenever you are mentioning a new operator, a space in the memory or a reference of that object in the memory is being created. Here is an example of class declaration, and we have taken a class dog where we are declaring a variable, declaring method with the public access modifier. We have definitely declared other methods also, set name, get age, set color. Okay, and also we have used the main method. So where we are creating an object of the class dog. So I have already mentioned in my previous vlogs and explained to you about the process of creating a class, about the process of creating an object, about the process of creating a constructor and how to call that constructor while the object is being created. So go through this example program carefully. If you have any kind of doubts, do let me know in the comment section. This is the output of my example program. First of all, you check the example program, try to solve the output from yourself and match this output with the output that you have found out. Now, all classes have at least one constructor. If a class does not explicitly declare any, the Java compiler automatically provides a no argument constructor, also called the default constructor, which I have already explained in my previous vlogs. This default constructor calls the class parent's no argument constructor or the object class constructor if the class has no parent. Okay, so you don't have to get into so much complexity. Just understand, if an object is being created, a default constructor is being called. If a user defined constructor is not being defined, then the Java compiler provides a default constructor for the same. So that's all guys for now, and we have understood about what class and object is, how to initiate, instantiate, initialize a class, and what is an object, how to use it, how to declare it. So definitely I think that this tutorial will help you a lot in understanding the concept and will definitely enhance your knowledge. So thank you for watching this tutorial. Please do like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to press the bell icon.